Dan, you're now live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the July 22nd, 2020 meeting of the East Lansing Planning Commission. Mr. Haywood, would you please call roll?
Bowman.
Here.
Boyle.
Here.
Cahill.
Here.
Kusler.
I'm present.
Sullivan.
Here.
Watson. Williams.
Here.
And Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I didn't note that you'd mentioned Commissioner Downs' name, but we did receive word in the past week that Commissioner Downs is resigning his commission. He's found that he's been tied up with another nonprofit that he works with, and so we thank him for his time and his efforts on this commission. And I guess we'll take that as a public announcement that we do have a vacancy, and we're certainly seeking applications to any interested citizen. And as in keeping with our procedure during these times, we will thank everybody in advance for their patience as we work with this technology. I'll remind all members of the public that you will have a chance to address the commission during the public comment and during each public hearing. Each commission member will be called on individually to speak during each item. Commission member may pass if they do not have a comment for that item. Commission members are reminded to state their name before speaking or making a motion, and all crucial votes will be taken by a roll call vote. That said, you have in front of you a copy of the agenda for this evening's meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
Move approval of Wednesday, July 22nd meeting agenda.
That's moved by Kusler and seconded by Wolf. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries. You also have in your packet a copy of the minutes of the July 8th, 2020 meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Move approval of the July 8th meeting minutes.
Kusler support.
Thank you. That's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Kusler. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing no hands, and so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Thank you. That motion carries as well. Bringing us on to item 2, committee reports. We have no current committee activity. Moving us on to item 3, staff reports. Mr. Haywood.
Thank you. Just a quick recap of council action on July 14th. They approved the development proposals for the West and Coolidge Road properties related to 3400 West and 3401 Coolidge, that being 3GT Racing and Eagle site plan development. So that involved the rezoning request, ordinance 1483, the lot split request, and the site plans for both of those developments. City Council approved those as recommended by the Planning Commission. They also approved the modified site plan for 2200 Coolidge Road for Coolidge Court. They also set public hearings for 300 West Grand River, the special use permit for a fitness center, 1234 East Grand River, special use permit for adult use marijuana retailer, 3315 Coolidge Road, a special use permit for adult use marijuana retailer, and 1950 Merritt Road for the special use permit also for an adult use marijuana retailer. Those are all set for August 11th. The council on this past Monday, July 20th, also set a public hearing for 605 MAC, which is a special use permit for additional occupancy for a sorority. We received an application for 100 West Grand River, which is part of the Park District development, for a special use permit for an SDM license for liquor license for Walgreens. That public hearing for the Planning Commission is scheduled for August 12th. Staff also administratively approved temporary outdoor seating for 340 Albert, which is the Baps Korean restaurant, 1403 East Grand River, which is the Grand Traverse Pie Company, and 521 East Grand River, which is the peanut barrel. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Haywood? I'm seeing no hands, and so move us on to item 5. Item 4, Commissioner announcements. Any announcements, Mr. Kusler?
Yeah, this is in relation to item 6 in our public hearings, specifically the one relates to MSU FCU. So I just want the commission to know for your understanding and possible motion to recuse me. I worked for MSU Federal Credit Union for 8 years. I am now a C-level executive for a credit union that serves an overlapping membership. There may be a conflict of interest if I were to continue to vote on this, considering that I could be considered competition to MSU Federal Credit Union. So I'm putting that out to the commission now. When we get to it in future, in future motions that we have to deal with, if you guys want to recuse me, it seems to make sense, but I wanted to give you guys the heads up now.
Thank
That
you.
raises an interesting issue because I'm a member. I bet there are many others on this commission who are also members of the credit union. I don't see that as a conflict of interest under the city's rules. So,
Nor I.
More specifically, the fact that I'm a C-level executive for a competing credit union.
right.
Thank you for
I
letting
point, but
Commissioner Cahill.
I agree also. I don't really see that as a conflict. I suppose it might be, we might ask the applicant if they have an issue with it, and then we could discuss it from there. But absent that, I don't see a problem.
Agreed. Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, my only comment is I think we should make a decision about that now because if we're going to recuse him, he should be recused from all of the discussions, not just the voting. So, and again, I also don't see a conflict problem.
Well, typically the way that this would work is that there would have to be a motion to recuse the individual in question. And so I will leave it to the commission to determine whether any one of you would like to make such a motion. I'm seeing no hands and hearing no motion. So that being the case, we will proceed on to ask if there are any more commissioner announcements. Seeing no hands, that'll move us on to item 5, communications from citizens. I'll begin by saying we do not have any written communications this month or this past 2-week span, but this will be the time in our meeting when we invite members of the public to come forward and make comments on any item that is on our agenda or might not be on our agenda. We do have 2 public hearings this evening, so you will have the opportunity to comment on those items when they come up in our agenda. But if you'd like to speak about something else, now would be the time. And I'll just go over the rules regarding the public hearing, communications from citizens. Each caller in the queue will have 5 minutes to address the commission. At the end of 5 minutes, you'll be placed back on mute. Callers will be identified by the last 3 digits of their phone numbers, or in some cases by their initials, depending on how you've chosen to sign in. When called upon, you will be unmuted. Please note, if you do not wish to speak at that time, please indicate so by saying pass. If you do wish to speak, please clearly state your name and address before addressing the commission. This is not a requirement, but it does help us to keep tidier minutes. That being the case, is Ms. Urdiales, are you the host this evening, or is it Mr. Parcell?
I can help with that, actually.
Mr. Haywood, thank you.
Jake's absent tonight, so I'll be helping with the attendees. So at this time, I'd like to call caller with the last 3 digits of their phone number 347 to speak. I'm going to unmute you now, and you have the floor. You are unmuted. Caller with the last 3 digits 347, you are unmuted and able to speak.
Pass.
All right, thank you. Now caller with the last 3 digits 409, you are unmuted and allowed to speak.
Pass.
Okay, our last caller is Nathan Hubble.
Anything you want to say? You're unmuted. Hi, Nathan Hubble, 120 Oak Hill Avenue, East Lansing. I'm here with Rick Hubble, 3330 West Lehman Road, DeWitt, Michigan. Sorry, you caught me off guard. I thought there'd be more callers before you got to me.
Yeah, we know that you're later on our agenda, Mr. Hubble. I don't mean to take any of your time, but you'll certainly be permitted to comment when your agenda item comes up.
All right, excellent. Well, in that case, we'll hold until our agenda item comes up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that is all of the attendees that we have, or callers. The rest of our callers and attendees, I believe, are related to the MSU FCU project, and we'll reserve their comments at that time.
Okay, thank you. That'll move us on to item 6.1, let's call it. This is a site plan and special use permit. An application from Neumann Smith Architecture for the property at the northwest corner of Abbot Road and Albert Avenue, also known as City Parking Lot number 4, to construct a 7-story office building, including an MSU FCU branch credit union, community space, general office space, leasable tenant spaces, related support and service spaces, and related site work. Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. Thank you. This site is a 0.3 of an acre, which includes lot 4, public parking lot, and portion of Albert Avenue reconfigured as part of the Park District development. Currently, there are 31 parking spaces and 2 accessible spaces located on the site. To the south and southwest of this site is the Abbot mixed-use building and the Graduate Hotel, both of the Park District development. The People's Church is located to the west of the Graduate Hotel. To the north is the Dublin Square Restaurant. To the west are the rental housing units owned by the DDA. These properties were purchased years ago for redevelopment purposes and have been conditionally rezoned to accommodate a previously approved development plan. They reverted to the original zoning RM32 City Center Multiple Family District after the expiration of the previously approved development plan. Further west across Evergreen Avenue is the vacant property that has an approved development plan for multiple family housing. The site is zone B3 City Center Commercial District, as are the properties to the north, east, and south. Directly to the west are properties zoned RM32 City Center Multiple Family, and further west across Evergreen is a property zoned conditional B3 Center City District. The People's Church is located west of the new Park District development and is zoned B2 Retail Sales Business District. The project is proposed to be a 104-foot, 8-inch, 7-story office building with 87,822 gross square feet of space. It will be owned by Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. Included in the building is a branch office for the credit union, community space, general office space, leasable tenant space, and support and service space. The first floor will include the MSU Federal Credit Union member branch located at the southeast corner of the building. Additional commercial space is located to the west and along Albert Avenue. Additional at the north end of the building along Abbot Road is the entrance to the lobby for the office space and elevator bank for the upper floors. All delivery and service areas are designed at the west side of the building off the public alley. The second floor of the building houses the community space to be used by both the MSU Federal Credit Union and the community. As many as 499 guests can be accommodated in the space, and it will be available during business hours and during evenings and weekends. Floors 3 through 7 are proposed office space for MSU Federal Credit Union employees and potentially other tenants. The building hours of operation are proposed from Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. and then Saturday, 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. and closed on Sunday. The building facade is proposed to be primarily made of brick masonry, green spandrel glass, and aluminum curtain wall system. There are windows proposed for the southeast and west side of the building, but there are none on the north side of the building. A mural is tentatively proposed for the north side of the building to fulfill the % for art requirement. There is a proposed space for recycling and trash removal at the west side of the building off the alley. The design allows the trash and recycling to be stored inside until it's picked up for removal. Bicycle racks accommodate 16 bikes, and they're located along Abbot Road for use of employees and patrons of the business. There is no on-site parking proposed or required. Parking for the proposed development can be handled in the municipal system at this time. Based on the traffic impact statement, the city engineer has determined the applicant will not be required to do a traffic study. However, the Transportation Commission has the following key recommendations. Westbound Albert traffic should be considered for no turn on red. The displaced parking from the existing Dublin Square lot should be included in assessing the distribution across the 3 nearby parking structures. After review of the fire, police, building, and engineer, there are no major concerns with proposed development being able to be accommodated by the city services. When applying for special use permit for additional building height, the zoning code requires that a portion of the building extending above the base level permitted in each use district be located no closer to the property line of a residential zone property than a distance equal to the amount of the height in excess of the base level. The adjacent property at 314 Evergreen to the west is zoned RM32 City Center Multiple Family Residential District, and therefore qualifies as a residential property. So approximately 40 feet, 8 inches of the proposed building sits above the base height, which is 64 feet. The proposed building is 21 feet from the east property line of the adjacent parcel to the west. Therefore, the portion of the building above the base height must be set back easterly 19 feet, 8 inches. This will require a variance. The applicant has been made aware of this and will likely be seeking a variance. The DDA will be reviewing the proposal on July 23rd. And since the property is part of several properties owned by the DDA and proposes for future development, staff will be requesting that they comment on the proposed variance at that time. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Schmidt? I'm sorry, Commissioner Cahill, I was, you're much smaller right now than you are in real life. So I do see you and I recognize you, please.
Okay. The staff report indicated that the proposed brick in the public right-of-way does not meet urban design guidelines. Could you tell me what that issue is there?
Sure. Right now, they're calling out that the brick will be matching the building. The brick that we require for the paving is a particular brick and from a particular manufacturer, and that matches all the other brick in the downtown area, and they'll be required to specify that brick.
I see. And then the zoning map that we were provided shows this as being community facilities zoning, but that was changed, wasn't it?
Yes, this property is zone B3.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Cahill. Any other questions for Ms. Schmidt? I do have one question regarding the use of the community space. You'd said that the hours for the for operation would not include Sundays. Does that mean the community space would not be available for use on Sundays? And ultimately, how would somebody gain access to that space or to reserve it? Or how is that to be worked out?
That's a good question for the applicant. At this time, they are not proposing any Sunday hours.
And Erin Bodell here, and hopefully I'm unmuted at this point. Okay, hi.
Ms. Bodell?
Yes, hello.
Hi there. Could you hold on for just a sec? I will have you speak when you're the applicant or one of the applicants.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
you're fine. You're fine. I suspect you've got answers to my question. I just want to make sure that any other questions to Ms. Schmidt are handled. And then
Sure.
we'll turn to you and the rest of your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Schmidt? I'm seeing no more hands, so I interrupted you inappropriately then, or perhaps preemptively, Ms. Bodell. I will ask the applicant to please take the mic or the mics and proceed with your comments.
Okay, the intent is to hopefully answer your question about the community space. So in general, MSU-FCU evaluates each request to use that community space individually. The hours of operation for the community space Darcy was correct, are within the hours of the building. We may or may not determine that outside of those hours that space could be available depending on what type of use would be requested for that community space. In general, we offer that community room to local organizations and community partners. And that space would be used for conference room or conferences and training sessions, financial education and group meetings. And that's generally requested through our foundation. So I hopefully answered your question there. Let me know if you need any other information.
Thank you very much. Once again, if there are no more questions for Ms. Schmidt, then I would invite Vice Chair Boyle.
Actually, I have a question for the applicant, so
Ms. Bodell.
yes. My question is that at least it's proposed that there may be some of the office space leased out to other people. And I'm wondering, would those people be limited to the hours of operation of the credit union, or would they be able to set their own business hours?
Typically, we would allow them to set their own business hours. Our hours are pretty generous, but we would typically allow them to do that.
Thanks.
Other questions for the applicant or for Ms. Schmidt? And then we'll permit the remainder of the applicant to proceed with any presentation they might have. Mr. Haywood and then Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Just real quick, I think because there are so many people on their team, and they all have the option to unmute. So I just wanted it to be known that they can kind of jump in if they want to. I was trying to unselect or unmute them, but it's kind of on them to select their own video and audio options so they can kind of jump in as they need to. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I had those same concerns about the Sunday hours for the community space. I don't know if those were addressed, so I was hoping that they could address that.
Thank you. I know that the applicant is here, if only virtually, so I will invite you to come forward and make any additional comments. I would also like to invite any of you that have access to screens to please turn them on. We don't get to meet very often, and it's sort of nice to see. I see Ms. Buck is smiling, and I like to see that. So thank you. Anybody that's has capacity to turn their video on, I'll invite you to do so. And then I will presume that Ms. Buck, you'll be making the initial comments.
Actually, I'm going to ask that Dave Mefford, our project designer, would be making the primary presentation and actually drive the presentation, if you will. But I was prepared to actually give the introduction to the people who are available here on our team to answer any questions that you might have related to any more of the nuts and bolts about the project. So we've prepared just a very brief overview here of the project that we can fly through here in just a couple minutes. But really, we just thank you all for your time this evening and for allowing this opportunity this evening. Dave, if you can advance to the next slide. Now let's make the introduction of the folks, and then you can take over. As part of the presentation this evening, or people that we have available for discussion this evening, we have Erin Baudel. You've already spoken to Erin. She is Vice President of Infrastructure and Planning and Facilities for MSU FCU. Walt Werderko is the Construction Project Manager. I am Kathy Buck with Neumann Smith Architecture, and with me this evening too is Dave Mefford, the project designer. Granger Construction is the construction manager. Jeff Tooley is here this evening. He's the project director. Joanne Kobaki is the senior project manager. Civil engineering wise, we have Jeff Keyes, president and engineering department head for KEBS. You should be very familiar with Jeff, as he's been very much involved in other developments here in the same downtown area. And then also this evening, we have both Jeff Oak, principal, and Miguel de la Cruz, the project engineer, primarily electrical, who was involved in doing the photometric analysis for the exterior lighting. So we felt that this was a good representative group that would be able to speak to any questions that you may have this evening. And so just wanted to introduce ourselves briefly. And I think, Dave, if you wanted to maybe just do a very brief summary, although I'll just leave it to you, Dave.
Yes, and good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Just as a point of protocol here, I know that you'd like to share our cameras, but I actually am restricted. It says that the host has to provide me access.
Dave, you're sharing it right now, so I think we see what you see.
No, but in terms of my camera, I didn't know there was a point made. You know, I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but you know, I would like to.
You should be allowed to at this point.
I had seen you real briefly, Dave, when you first signed on, but
I believe it's come on now. But yeah, thank you very much, Kathy, and appreciate kind of the overview given by Ms. Schmidt. You know, this is a great project. We're very excited about it, and we think that this building would be a very nice asset to the downtown core of East Lansing. And here on the screen now is a landscape plan, which was formally submitted as part of site plan approval. And really just want to touch upon and give a little more context for some of the design elements that we put forth into the building that don't necessarily always kind of come across in the black and white documents that were submitted. Here, you know, obviously this site is a very prominent site. Noted it's a little less than 1/3 of an acre, but it's a kind of a key intersection at Abbot Road and Albert Avenue in terms of the overall downtown core. You know, there's a lot of momentum that's occurred over the last couple of years with recent developments with the Center City District and Park District developments, which are either completed or close to being completed. And, you know, we designed a project here that we felt was going to complement the existing downtown core of East Lansing and really kind of help to continue that momentum. As Ms. Schmidt noted, there are a couple of different uses on the ground floor. We've designed a building that we thought would be, you know, very walkable in terms of that interaction between the streetscape and the interior of the building. Lots of transparency and various scaling elements that will allow, you know, this building, which is over 100 feet tall, to really kind of bring it down to more of a pedestrian level. And in the public right of way, the streetscape, we're going to be working with the DDA in amongst the urban design guidelines. There was a note made about the pavers at the primary corner of Abbot Road and Albert Avenue. Here, you know, we're working, we'll be continuing to work with the various officials within the city of East Lansing to, you know, make sure that we're abiding by the urban design guidelines and really the other public amenities kind of in the streetscape here, showing canopy trees, benches, bike racks, litter receptacles, so forth and so on. So, but, you know, we emphasize the importance of this on the kind of the western end of downtown, and we want to make sure that this is a great asset for many decades to come. So moving forward, this rendering here, you know, it's got kind of the primary corner of the building here at Abbot Road and Albert Avenue. As noted before, the primary exterior materials are largely brick. There's a red brick, which is kind of the primary brick, and then an accent gray brick. There's quite a bit of glass in the building. Again, going towards that transparency, you want the building to be accessible for the pedestrians and want sight lines into and out of the building so it interacts with the overall urban context. The MSU FCU kind of branded green, you know, obviously this is a very important building and their commitment to the East Lansing overall. At the top of the building, there's a little bit of metal panel, again, trying to play with the scale of the building and make sure that it really kind of relates to the other buildings within the overall context. You know, this building can be seen from great distances, multiple blocks away. So we wanted the overall representation, certainly on the outward faces of the Abbot Road and Albert Avenue, to be very, you know, in keeping with what's going on in the immediate vicinity, then and further out as well. And then down at the ground plane, again, you know, not to kind of overstate it, but the importance of really the fact that this is a pedestrian realm, you know, working towards the intent of the urban design guidelines and really kind of making sure that there's transparency and what we're calling scale elements here. We have canopies, there's a southern and an eastern exposure. We want to control the solar levels as the sun is kind of beating down, certainly on the southern face, the primary, you know, face along Albert Avenue. And also those canopies help to bring the overall scale down to more of a pedestrian level. Again, you know, playing with a stone base for durability, but again, breaking down the architecture overall. You know, here along Albert Avenue, again, similar kind of methodology relative to the materials of the building. Again, the red brick at the primary face, and then there's a gray brick as it wraps around, and really what we're considering kind of the service side of the building off of the alley. That's where the majority of the utilities would enter the building. It really, again, you know, playing with the architecture, making sure that the scale is pleasing to the eye and it matches kind of the overall intent of some of the other structures in the area. Looking at a dust shot, we, you know, spent a lot of time understanding kind of what other buildings were doing in the downtown core, and, you know, lighting being, you know, having a little bit of sparkle to the building and accent lighting on the facade. You can see here at the canopy line, there are sconces that wash the facade at that lower pedestrian level, again, trying to bring the scale of the building down. But you really, you know, working with the other elements of kind of the streetscape, specifically the street lights, which are not shown here as we're trying to emphasize the architecture. And then also additional lights, which will be existing in the canopies themselves to wash the walking area immediately to, you know, immediately outside the building. And again, really kind of elevating that experience for the pedestrians. Again, the dust shot here along Albert Avenue at Evergreen, kind of across from the Park District. Again, you know, kind of showcasing the architecture overall and that little bit of sparkle lower on the building to kind of really play up the architecture as other buildings have done within the downtown core. With that, we appreciate the opportunity to address the Planning Commission and the citizens of East Lansing, and we would like to entertain any questions that might be available to us at this time.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Mefford? Commissioner Wolf? Commissioner Wolf, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's responding very slowly for some reason. Yes. I wonder if you would say something about the story heights. The story heights in the building are much higher than what we're used to seeing. The ground floor is 18 feet, the second story is 16'8", and the 5 upper stories are 14 feet each. I assume this is because of the office use, and what we are seeing mostly in our tall buildings is residential.
Yes, to speak to the floor-to-floor heights, certainly on the lowest level, that 18 foot, that's what we call a more of a standard kind of commercial height that you would see elsewhere, typically in urban areas. You know, that offers the, you know, the flexibility. You know, certainly looking at, you know, the branch location for the members of MSU-FCU on the prime corner, but that's a fairly standard, what I'll call a commercial height. So certainly in urban areas. The 16 foot on the second floor is really for the community space. Again, you know, this is something that perhaps Mrs. Bodell could speak to further if she chooses, but, you know, really making sure that the overall scale of the space is appropriate, as, you know, having the ability to host large groups of people, you know, sight lines and really, you know, opening it up for a multitude of functions. And then the upper floors, as you noted, are office, and we really see this as a Class A type office building, and trying to maximize those heights in terms of the overall function of the space for MSU FCU, and really kind of make sure that it works not only from day one, but over the life cycle of the building. These buildings are going to live on for many decades, and we don't want these buildings to not be able to be used to their fullest capacity at any point down the road.
Dave, Commissioner, this is Kathy Buck with Neumann Smith. Sorry for interrupting, but I think just a point to make at the first floor as well is just to draw your attention to the fact that there is a pretty significant grade change across the project site from the northwest to the south. I'm sorry, from the northeast to the southwest corners of the building. There's nearly a 5-foot drop. So while the 18 feet from floor to floor seems luxurious, when you take that into consideration within the building and the ramping that has to occur, you really don't see that full 18 feet across the full east to west dimension of the floor plate at the first floor. So while it does seem a bit larger, it does have that added complexity because of the grade change across the first floor.
Yeah, Kathy, so if they can see the screen, kind of where the cursor is here, that's kind of the high point of the site. And then it falls kind of at the southwest corner across from east to west. But again, at a very small site of less than 1/3 of an acre, handling that complexity while allowing for access into the building and amongst all the other uses that need to occur, there's a lot going on there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? I just wanted to clarify that I'm looking at it and I couldn't find specifically in terms of the material selection. I just want to clarify that it is indeed transparent glass at the main level. I think you had said so, but I'm not seeing it on the elevations. Seems to me all those notes were upper, but from your talk, Mr. Mefford, it seemed to me that was probably pretty likely.
Yes, wherever possible, and it's really essentially everywhere except for a small area on the west side here, where we are, again, we're at really a schematic level of development for these drawings, but we're working with our engineers, and there are certain, back of house elements that might need to be, not vision glass or clear glass, as you noted, but the overall facade is predominantly vision glass, but there's a small area like right here where these two panes are probably not going to be clear. But at the ground plane where it's most important, as it relates to pedestrian activity in the building, it is going to be clear glass.
I didn't mean to expect that it would be 100% all the way. I appreciate your, being absolutely straightforward about that. I just, yeah, I mean, you've done a great job, I think, of breaking down the scale in terms of dividing it into individual bays. It's something that we're particularly conscious of with we're sort of developing a form-based code now. And so in as much as it's not in place yet, you're sort of, you've taken that to heart, even though it's not one of the constraints. And I think you've done a great job in doing that. So that would be just another sort of feather in the cap of this particular design.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicants?
Yep, I've got one.
Commissioner Kluger.
Yep.
Not on my screen, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. This might be a question for Ms. Schmidt. I'm looking at the parking map and reading over that. I want to confirm that all of the parking estimates that were put into this use Center City and Park District in those calculations.
Yes, that's correct. They use both.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I can see you all now. So if you were raising your hand before and I missed you, I apologize. Any other members of the commission that have questions for the applicant? Or alternately, if there are any members of the applicant team that would like to make additional comments, I'd certainly take those now as well. Commissioner Cahill, please.
Just a quick question of curiosity more than anything else. I think in a lot of your other buildings, you've had green tinted glass. This doesn't appear to be. It looks like it'll be grayish sort of. Is there a reason for that?
Well, I could speak to that. Yeah, I mean, we selected glass, with the intent of, with the really what you're looking at is a primarily as a southern exposure. So sun or solar control is a concern. We selected a glass that helps to address that, as opposed to, creating a bunch of architectural elements that we feel would detract from the overall look of the building. So the glass itself, the glass inherently, it does have a slight green tint to it, and this glass, does take on that character slightly, but predominantly it is clear glass, and it does lean towards the gray range, but it is very clear glass. It has a very clean kind of look and aesthetic, and it's used elsewhere in multiple buildings throughout the East Lansing area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? Or again, I'll invite the applicants team if they wanted to add anything. I'm not seeing any hands, and so I'll thank you, applicant team, for your time. At this point, I'd like to open up the public hearing for this application. Now is the time for any members of the public. If you have any comments or questions that you'd like to pose to the commission or to the applicants, I'll invite you to come forward now. Mr. Haywood, would you, if you call them forward, please?
Yeah, thank you. So caller with the last three digits, 347, you are unmuted and able to speak.
I pass.
All right. Caller with the last three digits, 409, you are unmuted and able to speak.
Pass.
Thank you. And our remaining caller is Mr. Hubble on a later agenda item. That's all we have today. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll close the public hearing for this application, return this to the commission. Any remaining questions? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Wolf.
Yes, I'm having trouble unmuting here. So I had this question earlier, but I couldn't get unmuted. This is for the applicant. Can you say what your expectations are for the additional tenant space on the ground floor?
Can you clarify that? I guess the question. I guess I don't understand the question.
Do you know which space I'm talking about?
Yes. So the first floor tenant space area that we have.
Yes.
Yep. We do not have a specific tenant in mind yet. We'll start to look at that space. It can be a variety of things. It may be related to what we do upstairs in the office space. But we'll be starting to look at our expectations for tenants here once we receive approvals for the building.
What would be related to what you do upstairs?
It may be related to the office space.
No, I was asking what would be related? What would be an example of something that's related? I can't quite picture that.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I'm asking what type of business you are thinking might go into that space.
It could be pharmacy. It could be a small doctor office. It would have to be office space. It's not a retail space. So it would be an office use predominantly. It could be nonprofit.
You're saying it would be your choice? You would not want retail in the building?
It's not approved as a retail space. It's approved as an office space. It's an office use predominantly.
Well, it's zoned B3, which allows retail.
I believe in our purchase agreement, it is excluded. And Dave, if you want to expand on that, you could do that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I believe you're referring to me instead of not David Haywood, but yeah, as part of yeah, exactly as you said, there are specific certain terms and limitations in terms of what's approved and what's not as part of this purchase agreement. And there, as Aaron, as you noted, the retail aspect of it is excluded as a use that could be permitted there. So, you know, I think to your point, you know, maybe it's a service-based user, but ultimately that's up to MSU-FCU.
Darcy or Dave, can you confirm that use restriction?
I cannot.
When I heard about the project and they mentioned the restriction to office, I understood that applied to the upper floors so that those could not be turned into residential. I still thought retail was allowed on the ground floor.
Their purchase agreement would be different from what we would allow for the zoning. So that may be the case, and we can verify that for the next meeting.
All right. My additional question then about the space, the tenant space was going to be, would that space also be limited to the same building hours that you have shown us already?
No, we would not limit that to, that could be a separate, may have separate building hours.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Haywood.
So I can answer the question about the requirement or the limitation on office, and I think that was in the original ballot language, so that it had to be an office building. So I don't think any retail is permitted for that ballot initiative, which then I think transferred or translated into the development agreement.
Thank you. Any other questions for either the applicant or staff from the commission? We have a couple of outstanding things regarding the setback that's going to be discussed at the DDA meeting tomorrow. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
And then there's some comments from remaining from the engineering staff and so on. So we'll see this again in a bit, but any remaining, Commissioner Wolf?
Yes, I have another subject. I'm concerned about the fact that the building exceeds our building and ground coverage limits for the B3. And the use of the community room as a way of gaining the additional ground coverage is a little troublesome. When I read the ordinance that talks about how you can get bonus ground coverage, it is specifically talking about outdoor types of things, or what they're providing in the community room is a nice feature of the building, but it's basically just a meeting room. And it really doesn't compare to the plazas and atriums and so forth that were intended as the features that could earn the bonus coverage. So my question for staff is, I guess it's a slightly complicated set of questions. I'd like a comparison with other buildings of the last 5 or 10 years in the B3. I'd like to know if there's any comparable space in any of those that has been granted the bonus ground coverage. I'd like to know, I guess I would single out 4 projects. The Abbot and the Graduate project that's right next to this, the Center City project, the Residences Hopcat building, and the 565 East Grand River. Those are the recent, relatively large buildings that I can think of in the downtown. And I'd like to know which of those did not meet or exceeded the ground coverage and thus needed a bonus, and what feature or amenity or did they use to earn the bonus ground coverage?
Very good. We can handle that.
All right, thank you. And I guess also if you can think of any other relevant buildings, those were the 4 that occurred to me.
Very good. We can have that for you at the next meeting.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions or directions for staff? I want to make sure I see all of you. I don't see any hands, so I will thank the applicant for their time and we will see this at a future meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you much for your time.
That will move us on to item 6.2. This is a lot split. The application from Nathan Hubble for the property at 16696 Towar Avenue to allow the subject property to be split into 2 new parcels. Mr. Haywood?
Oh, it'll be Ms. Schmidt.
I'm sorry, Ms. Schmidt. Please proceed.
The lot is zoned in the RA Residential Agricultural District as are the properties to the north, south, and east. To the west is the RM14 Low Density Multiple Family Residential District. The house and one of the garages have Towar Avenue frontage, and there is another detached garage behind the house. Those are the main 3 structures on the property. The rear part of the lot is open yard space. The existing lot is 747 feet deep by 297 feet wide. The applicant is proposing to split off the southeast portion of the lot to develop another residential lot. The proposed Lot B, which is 160.10 feet wide along the Towar Avenue frontage and 178.10 deep. The proposed Lot A to the north would be 178.10 feet wide along Towar Avenue and 747 feet deep, encompassing the existing single-family house and the detached garage behind the house. So the proposed split meets the requirements of the RA, Residential Agricultural District. It also is consistent with the master plan and the neighborhood compatibility. The proposed split does not meet all of the land division compliance. Specifically, Lot A would not meet the depth to width ratio. The subdivision regulations allow City Council to grant exceptions to these standards in specific cases where it's deemed that hardship, unusual topography conditions, or unique conditions justify such exceptions, and the applicant is asking for one of these exceptions. If the Planning Commission should choose to suspend the rules and act on the application this evening, staff provided a motion with 3 different conditions of approval in the staff report. We also are proposing a 4th condition of approval. While the applicant is proposing to add a house to the existing garage along Towar Avenue frontage, if it isn't constructed, the structure could potentially be considered non-conforming. And the condition we're proposing will help to assure the intention and hopefully assure that it will happen, or that it won't happen, that is non-conforming. We did present this condition that we're proposing to the city attorney, and his concerns are that that a condition under the lot split regulations are not going to stand up in court if an applicant would choose not to follow the regulations, and they could actually sue us. However, under these circumstances, we feel that this condition, if the Planning Commission should choose to use it, should be discussed for what possibly problems could occur with it. So the proposed condition is the existing garage on Lot B shall be removed from the site within however many months, unless a residence is established and the certificate of occupancy is issued, or any of the principal uses listed under section 50-222 1 through 3 are established in the same time frame. That section talks about the principal uses and special uses that would allow a garage or a shed of that nature to be on the site. This is something that is an option for you to consider and discuss what the concerns could be, the pros and cons, if this is something that you feel you could recommend to City Council, and they would ultimately discuss the concerns with the city attorney, what his concerns are, and would also talk through the pros and cons. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Ms. Schmidt? Vice Chair Boyle?
Sorry, I was muted. How is it off on the width to depth required ratio?
It is 5, let's see, it's off by quite a bit with the width to depth ratio, because it is creating a flag lot. And I think, let me look in the report here. It is off by 5.36 to 1 instead of, it should be 2.5 to 1, so double.
So it should be 2.5 depth to 1 width.
Correct.
And it will be?
It will be 5.36 to 1.
That's the new lot is going to be 2 shallow?
There's going to be 2 new lots. So
right.
One of them will be conforming and one will be non-conforming in width to length. Right.
And the one that will be non-conforming is the larger of the 2?
Correct. That's the 4-acre lot.
What's the purpose of that requirement?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It seems to be problematic in lots of this nature where they're more rural lots. I don't know if it's something that's holdover from old regulations where they were trying to prevent or preserve open land for farming. It's a good question.
Mr. Haywood?
I think the intent of that, generally the intent of width to depth ratio requirements is to create more neighborhood sized lots in proportion and to prevent like long spaghetti lots, where what you call spaghetti lots, where they're very narrow but very long. It ties land up long term for future development or future neighborhoods. It can make fractured land and tie up land for long periods of time.
And just to be clear, it really only applies here as I see it, because the measure for the width is taken at the front of the lot rather than say sort of average, because to be fair, the predominant width of the lot is more like what, oh goodness, 297 feet. And the depth is 747, but for the fact that the measurement is taken in front of the lot, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and this is also, outside of the context of either a platted neighborhood or a planned neighborhood.
Right.
It is a flag lot, but in that sense, it's a little bit different. Yep.
Other questions for Ms. Schmidt or further questions on this topic?
My question may be more directed to the applicant, I suppose, but we have to find certain conditions to be able to grant an exception. And if there's hardship, unusual topographic conditions, or other unique conditions to justify the exception. And this is a pretty large exception. It's more than double what's required. What would we be citing for applying an exception? As I said, maybe that's for the applicant.
I would submit that it probably is. I see that he's still here. Any other questions for staff before we invite the applicant forward? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Mr. Hubble, if you would mind, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and then proceed with any comments that you'd like to make.
Can you hear us? Because we unmuted a minute ago.
Yeah,
Okay, just check.
I can hear you. I probably am overriding you though because I'm talking, so I will be quiet now and let you talk.
Thank you. I think Rick has something to say.
Yeah, I think that I've been a builder here for 30 years, and I think to address the concern or the question on that is there's like a animal arboretum back here with the horse ranch, and by keeping the lot, because we actually went to Kebs originally and asked what to do with this with this lot, and they suggested breaking into 3 lots because it would be more conformative. But we just thought by keeping it more rural like this at the very end of the street, then with the animal arboretum next door and stuff like that, really we're actually besides length, we're very keeping them the same width, and it's just that the flag lot is to keep that more the the rural for a lot of the wildlife that's back there, and that's one of the things that I really liked about that whole layout. And so that's why instead of trying to go with 3, we went with 2. And then also as Darcy had said, the end of the road here, this house has been kind of a bad situation for quite a while, and fire and a grow house and stuff like that. And what we're trying to do is we took the one house and we just put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it to just really to beautify it. And then the house next door, we're going to do the exact same thing where the garage is at. We're going to put propose done everything through the building department, and we're going to put together a blueprint for that. And then hopefully by summer of next year, you guys will see 2 beautiful houses at the end of the road. But yet with the wildlife, if you ever gone down Towar, there's deer, turkeys, and everything. It really leaves the whole back lot for a lot of wildlife, which is really broken off, which I think for the exception on the long lot, with the sod farm there, it's really the right thing to do.
Thank you. It's Rick, but I'd like to call you by your last name if I might. Is it Hubble as well?
We're both Mr. Hubble, is my son.
Thank you, Mr. Rick Hubble. Appreciate that. I don't know that this will satisfy Mr. Cahill's concern. I did take a look at the property today, and indeed there is a horse, I don't know what you call it, a horse facility to the south, and a significant amount of corn to the north. I don't know if that necessarily sort of qualifies as unusual topographic conditions, but I don't think there's too many places in the city where you're going to see that. And that in addition, if my numbers are correct, we're actually looking at something ever so slightly more than a 2.5 width to depth ratio right now. That doesn't necessarily excuse what's being proposed, but it is what we're working with. Did the applicant have anything else they'd like to present?
I think the main thing here is when, Darcy's been a pleasure to work with. I have to just tell you that, helping talk about things and understand, where you don't do much development as far as, dividing and stuff. We do a lot of improving, but, we're really looking forward to seeing, 2 new places, take place down there and really improve Towar Road at the end.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'll just ask Mr. Hubble, and Mr. Hubble, if you just stick close, we're going to open up the public hearing for this project. I would now invite any members. Let's open the public hearing. I'll invite any members of the public who have comments or questions that they'd like to pose to the applicant or commission to come forward now. Mr. Haywood.
Thank you. So we have two other callers on the line. Caller with the last three digits, 347. You are now unmuted and able to speak.
Hello, yeah. My name is John Marsh. I live south of the proposed splitting and that. I just learned that somebody actually proposed splitting it into 3 lots. I'm definitely against that. That would completely change the nature. I disagree with somebody's comment that splitting the lot makes it more comparable to the other lots. That tiny little lot that's only 0.66 acres or so, that would be like the smallest lot on Towar Avenue. This area has been, more or less rural for the last 180 years. I really don't see why it needs to change now. And I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you. So the next caller is last three digits, 409. You are now unmuted and able to speak.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address this public hearing regarding the property located at 16696 Towar Avenue. My name is Mary Cook, and I have been the owner of the property located at 16736 Towar Avenue and the adjacent vacant parcel since 2005. I would like to discuss my 4 concerns about the division of 16696 Towar Avenue and the subsequent construction renovation of an existing building, and why the Planning Commission should not approve this. Concern number 1. My property is located to the immediate south of the parcel in question. My property is zoned residential agricultural, as is the property in question. I operate an equine business. On any given day, there may be up to 40 equines on my land, grazing, relaxing, playing, and enjoying a serene setting that these faithful servants of man deserve. Equines can become easily frightened, and when one is upset, the rest of the herd quickly follows suit. One thing that upsets them is loud noise. Construction sounds from things such as roofers, cement mixers, and electric nail guns may cause the horses to be afraid enough that they start to run without thought of where they're going or who they may stampede over to get there. They just want to get away from what has scared them as far and as fast as possible. This can quickly become a dangerous situation. They could crash against a fence and open up a hole through which they may escape, running out into the road or residential area, possibly injuring themselves or people in their way, or damage to the property that they run across. Concern number 2. Additional traffic on Towar Avenue, which is gravel at our end of it, due to another residence, may be harmful to the horses and the wildlife that calls this area their home. The addition of the new residents and all of their guests may be a substantial addition to the current traffic level. There are already many vehicles mistakenly looking for the dog park going down Towar Avenue, exceeding the speed limit, and an additional residence and its associated traffic will just add one more layer to the problem. Often, a slow-moving tractor and trailer drives down Towar Avenue carrying wood shavings. Additional traffic may not always be aware of this, and a possible accident may occur. Frequently, horses are being hand-grazed or ridden on the side of the road. Fast traffic may spook them, or they could be hit by flying gravel, causing them to panic. This action may injure both the equine and the human. There is tremendous amount of wildlife in this area. These deer, turkeys, foxes, skunks, raccoons, and assorted other species do not understand that they do not have the right of way. Additional traffic due to another residence makes a collision more likely. Michigan State Police report that there are approximately 53,000 car-deer accidents each year in the state. Deer vehicle accidents injured more than 1,300 people and killed 14 others last year. They are responsible for 1 out of every 6 traffic accidents. With the construction of multiple apartments on Chandler Road, wildlife has less space to live in this area. I did not have an opportunity to speak out about that development, but I am able to speak out now. Where and how are these animals supposed to live? Traffic and wildlife can be a deadly combination. They do not understand what a road is and what traffic is, and they might just be standing right in the middle of it. Towar Avenue is often foggy during the early morning commuting time. Deer herds are on the move during the early hours, and the foggy conditions make it more difficult to see the wildlife that may be in the road. Do not make this area more prone to collisions. Less traffic means less possibility of accidents occurring. Concern number 3. The symmetry of the neighborhood will be compromised by the splitting of the land at 16696 Towar Avenue. The proposed new parcel will be a small parcel, totaling only 0.065 acres, very shallow at 178.10 feet deep, with only 160.10 feet of frontage. This small, oddly shaped parcel would look strange and detract from the aesthetics of the area. Do not let the temptation of additional property taxes into the treasury be the deciding factor on splitting this parcel. Take a drive down Towar Avenue and look at the neighborhood. This proposed parcel split is going to look strange, and it's out of sync with the rest of the neighborhood. Concern number 4. The proposed new housing unit on the proposed split parcel would be very close to my property line. This property line contains an electric fence. I'm going to be blunt here. 40 horses have a certain smell. This proposed residence will certainly be receiving some significant manure smells. Many people find this distasteful. The current house on the entire parcel sits further north from my land and does not receive nearly as much olfactory sensation. Currently, I'm in the equine business, but I could just as easily switch things up and go into the hog business. It would just be a small parcel of swine, but hogs nevertheless. Again, this may be offensive to many. To summarize my reasons recommending that this board not approve the division of the parcel of property located at 16696 Towar Avenue, thus allowing an additional residence, is number 1, safety. Safety of the horses next door. Safety of the handlers of these horses. Safety of the tractor drivers. Safety of the wildlife that live in the area. Second, the unusual parcel created would not fit with the other sized parcels in the neighborhood, and therefore is not aesthetically pleasing. Please do not approve this parcel split. Support the animals, both domestic and wild, and their safety. Support the people and their safety. Support the quiet tranquility of this rural area. Do not approve this parcel split. Thank you for your attention to this matter. May God bless this planning commission and the decision it has at hand. May God bless America today and always. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. I will return, I guess, to Mr. Hayward, is that the end of our?
Sorry, yeah, that's all the attendees for today. Thank you.
Any commissioners have questions for any of the, either Mr. Marsh or Ms. Cook? I presume they're still available. Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, if Mr. Marsh is still available, I didn't catch where he lives, how close he is to the property.
I am still available. Yeah, I live at the.
Mr. Marsh, you got cut off.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I live at 16848 Tower. That is the equestrian center. And that.
Thank you.
The same one that Miss Cook was talking about?
She owns the property north of me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Could you guys please speak to that? I felt like Miss Cook was the owner of the equine center. Are there two equine centers?
She owns the property immediately north of Nottingham Equestrian Center, and then I own Nottingham Equestrian Center, and I own the property south of that and to the east of that. So she owns the 5-acre parcel north of me, which was immediately south of the parcel that's on the very end of the block. Then I don't know if they're at the meeting here, but I believe it's the Johnsons that they own the sod farm, which most of us have known it to be, but now it's corn and soybeans for the most part. They're to the north.
Mr. Haywood, if perhaps you could provide some clarification here. I'm looking at the map that was part of our packet. I can see 16696 is clearly identified and 16736. There's two parcels that are identified with a 0. I presume that the one between 16696 and 16736 is Mr. Marsh's property 16848. It just happens to be labeled with a 0 here. Or I see Commissioner Wolf shaking his head, so perhaps you could take a stab at helping me understand this better.
Mr. Marsh's property is the one south of 16736. I think Ms. Cook's property is actually that entire 5-acre lot that has 16736 in the corner of it.
Oh, that makes sense in terms of the way the numbers would proceed right away. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I was working backwards. That makes sense to me now. But is that part of the township then? Is that why it's not labeled on our map?
Not labeled how?
I don't see any indication of its. I'm looking at page 141 of 147 of the packet, and there's no number on that particular lot.
Yeah, I think that's outside of the city.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Nottingham Farms is in the city, is it not?
Give me just a second. I'm bringing up a different map to help. Give me just a second.
Maybe Mr. Marsh could comment.
Yeah, am I unmuted?
You are.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are. Please proceed.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a East Lansing address and that, but we are part of Bath Township, and that we were not annexed 10 years ago when all the annexing went on. So.
Commissioner Wolf and then Commissioner Cahill.
So then I guess I'd like to know if the 16736 property, is that in East Lansing or is that in Bath Township?
I believe that's in East Lansing. Just inside the south property line of that property would be
So the city limits have sort of a flag shape there, you might call it.
Yeah, there's a bottleneck there.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh and Ms. Cook. Commissioner Cahill, did you have something to add?
I don't know if it's adding, but I'm still confused about where people are here. I keep looking back at the photograph of the neighborhood map, I don't suppose the neighbors who spoke have that available, or do they?
Almost certainly not. Mr. Haywood, or maybe we could ask staff to put that up on the screen. It's page 136 of the packet I'm looking at.
Talking about one of the aerial photographs, Jack?
Yes.
The first one or the second one?
Well, I was looking at, I guess it was the first one, but I suppose either one would be helpful.
Actually, to be fair, Commissioner Cahill, you're right. I think the one on 135 of 147 is clearer. It sort of divides the properties up a little bit more tidily.
The one on, you say, I don't have numbers on what I have here.
The one that looks as a three-dimensional view as opposed to the straight down aerial view, I think it divides the properties up a little bit nicer.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I was looking at and trying to figure this out.
Commissioner Wolf?
Am I muted?
I can explain it on the neighborhood map diagram.
Okay.
You see the red encircled lot, right?
Yes.
That's the one we're considering.
Right.
There's another lot exactly the same shape and size just south of it.
Right.
That's all green, grass and trees.
That's right.
That's Ms. Cook's property. And then the stable, the Nottingham stable starts just south of that. That has the mostly dirt areas and the barn and so forth.
And that's Mr. Marsh.
Yes. And that's much larger. It's larger than the other two combined.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any remaining questions for the applicants then? You're certainly welcome to stay behind. I appreciate your input, and we'll return this to the commission. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant or for staff?
Can I say something briefly?
You are the applicant. Yes, please.
All right, thank you. This is Nathan Hubble. I just want to say thank you all very much for taking the time to talk to us about this and consider this this topic and this issue. This is actually the first lot split we've ever done in East Lansing, and so we definitely are trying very hard to make sure we're completely in compliance and we're not stepping on any toes. So it's kind of funny because on my part, just to briefly address something that was stated earlier, I was actually in charge of just figuring out how to split the lot. And the reason I did it as a flag actually was for a purely selfish reason is I'm very, very into wildlife in a general sense. And I thought it would be a shame to break the lot into two long lots. That way, whoever bought the smaller lot may want to put up a fence or something like that. And then that would break up the kind of the integrity of the back lot, which really is kind of a haven for deer and turkeys and a lot of other things. And so the reason I broke it up the way I did was to kind of preserve that. So it definitely wasn't done with any intent to create a dissimilar lot, which I didn't consider it to be at that time anyway.
Kev suggested.
And I think you might have heard Rick just now. We ran it by Kev's, and they also kind of agreed that it was not a terrible idea.
One's conventional.
So that was kind of the thought on that, just to give some insight into the reason we made this decision. It wasn't just kind of something thrown together. We were trying to be conscientious of the neighborhood and the wildlife in the area around it. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hubble. Mr. Haywood or Ms. Schmidt, I'm not sure who addressed this to. I'm just sort of going back and taking a look at some of the requirements of a potential lot split. And as I see it, there's two key issues here. If the split is reasonably compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of preserving population density patterns, traffic safety, privacy, and open space and property values, then it should prevail. But for the fact in this case, you're looking at a lot that is outside of the width to depth ratio. I'm not sure who had suggested it. I thought that the applicant had suggested that it was Kebs that had suggested it, but I thought that when they had talked about splitting it into three lots, that what they were suggesting is extending what is now the west property line of the new lot, so lot parcel B, and extending that to the north property line overall, thereby creating two smaller lots at the front of the lot, of the current lot, and then one larger one in back, all of which would be within the 2.5 to 1 ratio. Maybe I misunderstood, but that was the intention. In that case, you've got an additional hang up because the garage would be all by itself on its own lot. But that, if that were the case, if I understand things correctly, at least the ratio question would be answered. Or am I missing something else that would sort of prevent? I mean, I with all appreciation of Ms. Cook's comments, there is currently a building on what would presumably become the south lot, so that the sort of the density of the neighborhood would not be adversely impacted, if impacted at all, allowing for the fact that there are going to be olfactory issues, and that we're not talking about rezoning or a significant subdivision being proposed, and so that the traffic I wouldn't expect would be significantly impacted either. So just sort of trying to get to the kernel of what we're asked to consider here. Commissioner Wolf. Actually, that was sort of a question for staff, so maybe if there is a response, if not, then please, Commissioner Wolf.
So I guess the concept of there being 3 lots is new to me. And Darcy, I don't know if you can shed any light on that issue.
That was a potential, but they had submitted the application for the 2 lots. But yes, 3 would take away the situation of the the width to length ratio, but they'd still need a waiver because they would need a waiver, same type of waiver for access drive.
A different issue.
A different issue, but right, it would still be asking for a waiver.
Commissioner Wolf, was that your issue?
No, I don't know if this is something staff can figure out right now. I was sort of trying to start looking it up myself. On the zoning map, in the staff report, which I can't tell what page that is, but it shows the diagrams of the various properties. And the one to the south of this shows an address of 16736 for a small lot, and then a flag lot surrounding it that is probably designated as vacant right now or something. That's why it doesn't have an address. Let's see, can you confirm that those are 2 separate lots there?
They are 2 separate lots.
And they're both owned by Ms. Cook?
They would have to be.
That seemed to be what she was saying.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, they are.
So what strikes me there is that setup is nearly identical to the setup that would be created if we split this lot off. So I'm wondering why, if that split has not caused any detriment to the neighborhood, why doing a similar one on the lot to the north of it would be such a problem. That's just a rhetorical question in case anyone has any thoughts.
I'm mindful that I haven't actually closed the public hearing, and so I'd like to do that now. I haven't taken comments from the public. I saw Commissioner Kusler's hand up, or not.
You can close the meeting if you'd like to close the meeting first.
No, I am closing the public hearing, but
no, Commissioner Wolf, I wanted to tell you that I agree with that rhetorical question. It does seem puzzling if there hasn't been the impact that was stated on those lots, what would cause this to happen there as well. So thank you for pointing that out.
Commissioner Cahill.
I wonder on that point, looking at it, 16736 is much narrower than what's being proposed on the next lot. Is it possible that that actually meets the requirement?
It's possible.
Yeah. Maybe that's why it was allowed.
It may have been allowed prior to being brought into the city.
Okay.
Fair point. Mr. Hayward.
Can we get some history for the next, when we take this up again, unless it gets moved ahead?
We sure can.
Mr. Haywood.
Couple of points. One, Mary Cook is still on the line, so if you have questions directly to her, she's still available if you have questions for her. Secondly, that parcel is 92 by 300, so I believe it's just a little bit more than 2.5, the 2.5 to 1 ratio. So it wouldn't qualify today, but I don't know when that was created. I don't know if it was created while it was in Bath Township and now it's rolled into the city. So there would be quite a bit of history to look into on that one, which we can do. But I just wanted to bring those 2 points up.
Which parcel are you talking about? The smaller one of hers?
Correct. The 16736.
And how about the other one? That looks like it could be in violation or in excess also.
Yeah, it's a flag lot. I'd have to look at that one a little closer, but looking at it more closely, possible.
Any other questions for staff then, or for the applicant, or what is the commission's pleasure? Do we want to sit on it for a month or several weeks?
I guess what I would ask, what we'd aim to get by waiting.
It's the commission's pleasure. Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go out and look at this property. I'd like the opportunity to look at it before making a decision here. I'd also be interested in the history of the property next door before coming to a conclusion about this. And there's also obviously been significant opposition from neighbors, and I think we should give it full consideration, not rush it ahead.
That's a fair point. Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, I would like this to go to our next meeting, and I have a question. I'd like to know more about the lot sizes that are to the south of the equestrian center, because down there are a whole series of lots that are developed with single-family homes on them. I'd like to get some feeling for what the acreages of those are, if they are still significantly larger than this or similar. Or...
We can do that.
Excellent point. Any other directions, or questions for staff? Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, just wanted to say quickly, I'm in support of postponing this as well, or keeping to our traditional schedule, because I do think there are a few open questions. I think that the public's raised some valid points about the slippery slope of this particular street changing. However, I'm not convinced that this particular application is going to have a significant change in the neighborhood. So unless they have some more information on that, I guess I'd appreciate it.
And just by way of clarification to the applicant and to the Mr. Marsh and Ms. Cook, it's not unheard of for us to act on relatively straightforward properties at the same meeting that we hold the public hearing. In this case, sounds like we're deciding not to do that. At least that sounds like the tenor of the discussion as currently. It will be on our next meeting's agenda. And at that time, you won't have the opportunity to make a comment during, you'll have opportunity to make a comment during the meeting, but it will be closer to the beginning of the meeting at the public hearing portion and not at the old business portion. So just be aware if you'd like to come back to the next meeting, certainly feel free. And you'll have the opportunity then, but it'll just be at a different portion of the meeting. And then ultimately this would be heard by City Council at some time in the future, but after our meeting. Just so that you're aware, I know you don't do this every couple of times a month. And so just to let you all, both the applicant and the two members of the public, we will see this again, it sounds like. Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, in the way of history, I'd like to know more about the 16696 property. Is it appropriate to ask the applicant that at this point, or?
I don't see why not. They're here.
I recall that a house was first built there like 20 years ago or something, and they had a fire, and then another house was built, or no, I guess it was repaired. Anyway, I'm wondering whether that was the first house that was ever built on the property.
I would submit that any information we have, the earlier the better. Ultimately, it's going to hopefully feed your consideration of it. So if Mr. Hubble, if either one of you could provide us with some information about the history of the lot, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely, sir. Nathan Hubble here. I'm going to let Rick speak briefly as to the history of the lot because he met and talked with the previous owner in a little more detail than I did. I did want to respectfully forward to the commission that if it is a make it or break it kind of situation, we can resubmit plans to make that lot extend all the way to the back line. I just, once again, my reasons for doing it, I felt like were good reasons. So just respectfully, I wanted to say that we understand that we want to be in as much compliance as you guys would like us to be. So that's all I had to say. Rick, want to talk about the history of the lot?
Yeah, so the reason why Lot B is shaped the way it is that Keb said that was a conforming lot. And that is why we went with that. As you had mentioned, I think, Mr. Wolf, instead of being like a spaghetti lot that ran all the way to the back. And we were more than happy with that, but we were directed that it was better to do it this way. But we're open to either way. I want you to know. But the other thing is there was a farmhouse back there, and they demolished it, left the garage, and actually had a grow facility there for years. And when I purchased it, they had taken a lot of the equipment out, lights out, and there's a fence up where they were growing, numerous amounts of plants there. And then the building next door, they had built a house that, as you said, had caught on fire. And so we, purchased the property and got all the permitting, brought it up to code. And if you drive by there, I'd be more than happy to get your guys' input on how beautiful it came out, and we'd like to, basically build one next to it, that would be equally as beautiful, So that's really the goal. And I think the concern about the traffic on the road, it's the houses are both at the very end of the street. So, as somebody going, 45 miles an hour and then 10 feet going in your driveway would be, really hard to do, So, but, the beautiful thing about the road is that, of the wildlife, and that's why we did get one lot that was conformity per Kebs. And then we kept the other one. Instead of doing 3, we did just 2, just so we could, really, we think, like Mrs. Cook's, concerns of keeping the wildlife there and not disturbing the Eskrian, community as much as possible,
Thank you, Mr. Rick Hubble. Commissioner Cahill.
I'd like to ask Mr. Hubble, what type of operation is right on the other side of your property? Where I see it looks like sort of an H barn, maybe?
That is one of the barns from the sod farm. And that's one of the large buildings that's it would be straight to the east. And then there's also one straight to the north.
Okay, so that's all a unified operation on both sides of the street?
Yeah, that gate opens up at the end, and that's where a lot of large trucks come down the road and then go through that gate out to those barns.
Okay, coming from the north or the south?
The south. The only way to get there that I know of is from the south.
Okay.
Yeah, fair.
Yep.
Yeah. Both those barns are owned by the
Farm.
same farmer, to the best of our understanding.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't have any sound. Just
Yeah, I think you're muted.
oh.
Dan, I think you're muted.
Thank you. I fell into the trap of pushing the wrong space bar. Here we go. I couldn't see all of you, and now I can. I'm just looking for if there are any hands that are raised, and I'm seeing none. And so I will remind us that we will see this matter at a future meeting. And thank the applicant and the public for their input. And then move us on to old business and new business, neither of which we have. And then on to item 9, commissioner concerns. Commissioner Wolf.
I have a question for Mr. Haywood. I wonder if you can tell us anything about the status of 2 of our current projects that we haven't heard about in a while. One of them would be the Hub 2 project on Bogue Street. In February, City Council heard that, and the plans had changed, and they changed the ordinance and decided to send it back to us for reconsideration. Is that on its way, or is it?
It's I think with the COVID pandemic, I think that's put their project into a holding pattern. And I think I reached out to the applicant maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago and asked them about the status, and they said that they're still working on it, but they'll let us know when they're ready to come back. And at this time, we haven't heard anything, so it's unclear how close they are to resubmitting at this point.
And then the other one is all through our process, but as far as I know, hasn't started construction, and that would be the moderate income housing project on Valley Court, between Valley Court and Evergreen. Any word on the status of that?
Right, so I think they are still planning to move forward. But we are still working out. There are a lot of moving parts in that area, right? There's their project, there's the utility project in Evergreen, and what would go through the parking lot 8, and decisions about that. You know, how to reconfigure the extension of Albert, how to abandon Evergreen, how the utilities flow through that area, and then add in the Citadel potential project on the DDA properties. And they are, all of those are kind of in a pot stewing right now. So trying to figure out how to coordinate all of those. We've been meeting to do just that. So things are in flux a little bit, depending on how each one of them maneuver and what their most recent idea or concept is affects the other. So we're kind of in the process of sorting that out and getting everybody to a consensus on how to move forward with the utilities in that area, which will affect when one starts or how the other ultimately develops their property. So I guess stay tuned on that. We're very, very close to resolving that, but there are some details to continue to work out.
I know originally Convexity was, they had hoped to keep on many of their same people from the hotel project to start on the apartment building right after finishing the others. And they were hoping for some efficiencies in doing that, but it may not be possible now, or?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Sure.
Everything seems to be kind of changing. But the good news is Convexity, River Caddis, and our utility design team are in close contact. So I think, you know, the resolution is coming. It's just a matter of continuing to hold the iron down.
All right, thanks for the update.
Vice Chair Boyle.
Well, I'm wondering about the housing study. I'm anticipating that the COVID situation may have interfered with that, but I certainly think it's going to be of use to us in council if it can be undertaken.
Right. So I don't know at this point the actual status of the project, except that it is still on hold. We are supposed to be returning to full strength staff on Monday. I guess we're probably going to need a little bit of time to get back up and running and get, take care of our backlogs and kind of clear the queue a little bit and see where the schedules land on that and other projects. But Monday kind of represents hope in getting back to normalcy and taking on some of those projects. So.
Any other commissioner concerns? Well, then seeing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
So moved.
Say that was motion to adjourn made by Commissioner Cahill. Was it seconded by Commissioner Wolf?
Sure.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:49 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.